Today we're gonna make quinoa meatless meatballs. They're vegetarian and they have that tender, moist inside, just like a meatball, with a crispy outside that's caramelized from searing it in a pan. And then the flavors are just incredible. They're seasoned with 2 types of cheeses and beautiful spices. You can top your pasta or even salads in a way, or make a little meatless meatball sub. The world is your oyster, but these quinoa meatballs are everything. Let's get into it. So quinoa meatballs. First step, quinoa. Seems obvious. You can make this ahead of time. I like to make a big batch for the week, and then I can make meatballs or just salads or whatever. So in a pot, we need 2 cups of total cooked quinoa. So I've got 1 cup of uncooked quinoa and 2 cups of cold water. And I'm just gonna put that in my pot. Really just starting out strong today. I'm gonna do just a little bit pinch of salt in my quinoa and then a little bit of oil. This is optional, but I find it helps it not stick together as much. Just like a teaspoon. Honestly, it's like half a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just give that a stir up to break up any clumps. Our work is done. So, put the top on, go ahead and pop it on the stove, and we're going to put it on high, and then we're going to bring it to a boil, and then we're going to reduce it to low, and let it kind of simmer until all the water is absorbed, and the little, you know how like quinoa gets fat, and then it has that tail that just like pops off? Till there. And then we're going to fluff it, and then we're going to use it. So in the meantime, we can prep the rest of our ingredients, but we also just don't even have to. We can make our sauce, because you know you want sauce. Okay, so our quinoa is cooked. You can see that it cooked all the way through. The water has completely evaporated, and then I just gave it kind of a fluff, and it's just been cooling for a few minutes. It's not necessarily that it does cool, but if it is blazing hot, then you are going to want to be a little bit careful about how you add your egg. So we'll just set this to the side, keep it warm. It could also be cold, it's not a big deal. And then we're going to prep the rest of our ingredients, which just means we're going to cut a bunch of things. Unlike my turkey meatballs, which use, dried ingredients and are super fast, this takes a little bit of effort, but not a ton. So we are just going to get our basil picked. All right, so go ahead and take your basil, kind of roll it up, give it a good slice here. I just want about a 1/4 cup. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get a big bowl. So this is where we're gonna put everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start by putting all of my ingredients in that bowl. Next, I'm gonna do my cilantro. It's about 2 tablespoons of this. I don't feel like slicing it nicely off of its thing, so this is a little trick that you can do. Think of it like, like a haircut. Cilantro is a different choice for these meatballs. It kind of gives them a really nice flavor though. So I like kind of what it brings to the table. I also use it in like spaghetti squash lasagna, which is really delicious. I can link to that below. I don't have a video for that yet, but if you want one, let me know. Okay, so about 2 tablespoons of cilantro. 1, 2. I'm gonna save these and use them later. The hardy herb, it works better with hardier herbs, but I'll use them later. I've got some really sad oregano right now. Just really, it's probably the saddest oregano I've seen in a long time. So, yeah. I'm gonna pick that. We only need about a teaspoon of this, so I'm not too stressed. Okay. In it goes. Great. We are done chopping our herbs. Thank God. All right, I pick a little bit of thyme. You could use dried thyme. that would be a better use of your time. I had to, I'm sorry. But I'm in it now. All right, so go ahead and get your quinoa. I'm gonna put it over here. Okay, so we have a little bit extra quinoa, which is great because I'm gonna eat it for lunch. Then we've got Parmesan cheese. I shredded this myself on a microplane. You could use the fine setting, like finest side on the box grater. Asiago cheese, crushed garlic, a little bit of red chili flakes. You can omit these if you don't like them, or you can just use a little less. Totally up to you. 1 egg, kosher salt, and then these are Italian seasoning breadcrumbs. So you can use regular breadcrumbs if you'd like, but you might want to, add some additional, dried oregano and dried basil and things like that. Things that are usually in here. Just, but I like to cheat wherever I can. And then you're gonna mix it. So you want to be a little bit more careful than you are when you mix meat, because you don't want to break the quinoa or hurt it in any way. You kind of just want to mix it in, and then you'll notice that it'll start to kind of come together in the way that meatballs do. So it is cohesive, right? Like it'll hold itself together in a ball, and that's exactly what we want. So we are going to go ahead and get a plate, and then we're just going to portion the meatballs. Just grab a bit, and then you're kind of squeeze it together, kind of like cookie dough in a way, and then roll it. Okay. Boop. And then you just repeat with everything else. That is it, and we have done all of our meatballs, and we're ready to start cooking them. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my pan set up to sear, and then we'll go cook them. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just preheat our pan. I've got a seasoned cast iron skillet, but you can use whatever you'd like over here. Now my pan is seasoned, but I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a little spray. Sometimes all it needs is just a little non-stick cooking spray, just because we're gonna brown them and sear them, and we don't want them to stick. So I am going to bake mine afterwards. So you can either plop them in the sauce to finish, or you can bake them. I find that the quinoa meatballs, that it is best to bake them and then put them into whatever sauce you are going to use, because then they stay together a little bit better. Alright, so my pan is nice and hot, and I'm going to go ahead and start placing my meatballs in the pan. So we're going to cook these just like any other meatball, where you're going to brown all the edges and the sides, at least 4 sides, and then we're going to bake them. Okay. So kind of, just remember where you started, and you're going to start rotating from that direction and kind of move. I like to move it kind of like a clockwise, but it all depends on how you placed your meatballs down. Right, so we can start turning them. You can see that they, are starting to get a little golden brown, and that's what we want. We're just gonna, kind of turn them. Just take a little bit of patience, but nothing too serious. Roll like that, and try and move them around, give them a new side to be on. Now you're not going to brown every single outside inch of this, unless you have all the time in the world. But I like to get at least 4 sides, so you get like some nice crunch on the outside, and that little bit of caramelization, which is really nice. And then you can start taking them out. I've got my baking sheet over here with parchment on it, and then I'm going to start taking them and I'm placing them on the sheet. Remember, you do have to cook these all the way through because of the egg, so you want to make sure that you are actually going to bake them. Searing them also helps keep them from falling apart if you do put them in sauce or something like that. All right, so now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna bake it in my preheated oven. I've preheated to 350 degrees. I'm gonna pop it in there, and they're only gonna bake for like 8 to 10 minutes. But you just wanna make sure that they are cooked all the way through. So you can use a cake tester to poke them, or a knife. Hold it in there for a second, and then take it out and touch it to your lips and make sure that it is hot. Because if it's hot, then the eggs are probably 180 and you're fine. So we're just gonna pop them in. And they're out. So they baked about 8 minutes. And they were blazing hot in the center. They've cooled about a few minutes just now, but they're ready to eat. So you could serve these as an appetizer. You could make a quinoa sub. You could take this and put it on top of pasta and just douse it in sauce. And I mean, it's just any way that you would use meatballs. These are exceptional.